records that show that quit the triathlon already.
No, I did not.
Classic won by me.
No, I did
Classic
not.
won.
I did not. I said I'm contemplating a duathlon, run, bike, run, instead of swim, run, bike. That's all.
He said he was doing
That
the triathlon.
sounds like, yeah.
No,
that
I
sounds
said
like
I'm contemplating. You know what? I'm doing both now.
You do
I'm doing both.
Quintathlon?
Yeah, exactly. Back-to-back days.
Wow.
I'll see you in Rock.
All right, we're starting with Rodgers' reaction. You know, the Jets' Woody Johnson said firing Saleh was, quote, my decision and mine alone. Doth protest too much, Mr. Johnson. Rodgers was on McAfee and addressed the idea that he played a role in Saleh's exit, saying, I resent any of those accusations because they're patently false. It's interesting the amount of power that people think I have, which I don't. Brew, your reaction.
First of all, I got to say, I love the way Aaron Rodgers set that quote up with I'm close with his family. And maybe he is, but I throw the football with his son.
Name-checked one of his kids.
It made you feel like, how? He couldn't have called the hit. He could not have called the hit. He's tight with, was it Adam, his son?
Yeah.
I think he said Adam. But look, I know this for a fact.
Okay.
And this means Aaron Rodgers is responsible. Had he played even mediocre football the last 2 weeks, Robert Saleh would still have a job.
Definitely.
They'd be at least 3-2, maybe 4-1, and we wouldn't be having this conversation.
And Aaron almost acknowledged as much as that later when he was like, you take
nice
accountability if we play better this Sunday.
No question about it. But we also, look, I don't think Aaron Rodgers, as I said, ordered the hit. But I do think it stretches the bounds of common sense to think that the owner, Woody Johnson, would not have run this by Aaron Rodgers. And had Aaron Rodgers said, our defense, Woody, the defense is playing great. The offense has been the problem. I don't think I love Robert, as he's been saying, we don't need a coaching change. Woody Johnson doesn't pull the trigger if Rodgers says stop. So at the very least, I don't think he ordered it, but I think Johnson brought it up to him and he didn't stop it. All right. We also know this. When Aaron Rodgers said, I don't have the power, well, Nat Hackett, Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, and Tim Boyle begged to differ. All right. You got them jobs with the Jets. And then finally, I hate to say it, but it's true. We know Aaron Rodgers isn't above lying publicly. We know it. It's a fact.
So
right.
So that's that's the most important piece here, because for the record, I do not think it would have been Aaron Rodgers' responsibility if Woody Johnson said, I'm thinking of firing Saleh, to say don't do it, because I think that firing Saleh is probably the right decision. The reason I'm saying just probably, well, that's why I'm not. I was certain it would have been the right decision over the summer, or I mean over the offseason when you could have hired Mike Vrabel or a forward-thinking offensive coordinator, something like that. Because I'm not a solid guy when it comes to his coaching, head coaching ability. But I think it's probably the right idea that they needed to shake something up. And we already know Rodgers is untouchable, and we know Nat Hackett's unfireable. Now, maybe he can be deposed, but we know he's unfireable, and I don't think Davante Adams is going to wave a magic wand and save the day. But what Bruce said at the end matters. And this is why credibility and reputation matters. So I'll say something kind of personal about our group, and then I want to go through a list. Years ago, when we knew each other, but we weren't partners on TV yet, I don't even remember the exact specifics of it, but you said something on Undisputed, and Kevin Durant came out and said, Chris Broussard's lying. And I didn't reach out to Chris. I obviously don't know KD. And I went on First Things First the next morning and said, no, he's not. I said, I guarantee you what Brew said is accurate, because Brew has a 50-year reputation publicly of being honest. And that was sorted out the way it was. Here is what Aaron Rodgers.
About me?
What?
Do you have a story about me?
I'm just thinking.
I don't. Actually, we don't.
We don't. Here is what Aaron Rodgers, in the last 18 months,
We have a short show today.
Which is why I'm going to read them quickly.
Okay.
Has asked us to believe. And I'm going to leave out the most notorious lie because he thinks this lie is the reason everyone dislikes him. The first one at the press conference when we were all wearing masks. Let's pretend that one didn't happen. He told us he was 90% of the way retired before hanging out in a dark hole and some vision or something told him he's got to go play for the Jets. Believe me, I'm Aaron Rodgers. I'm telling you the truth. He told us my phone doesn't work at my palatial Southern California estate. Believe me, I'm Aaron Rodgers. I'm telling you the truth. He told us that a reporter was lying and that he had no hand whatsoever in the Jets' offseason moves, and it was just coincidental that they said Tim Boyle, Randall Cobb, Alan Lazard, and Nat Hackett are on the top of our wish list. He told us that he found out that listening to dolphins have sex helps your Achilles tendon heal. He told us that. I'm Aaron Rodgers. Believe me.
Has that been disproved?
And he told us, by the way, that Achilles tendon was healed enough that he was going to be able to play football in December. And he told us, believe me, me and Robert Saleh have a great relationship, despite the fact I checked him in the chest a couple weeks ago. And I'm Aaron Rodgers, and I'm here to tell you the truth. The owner of the New York Jets called me. When he said, yeah, he calls me occasionally. He called me after I tore my Achilles, is one of the references. I'm like, well, yeah, I would imagine, but it's not like they have weekly check-ins. He happened to call me 12 hours before he fired the head coach, and it never came up in conversation. I'm here to tell you, I don't believe you. Am I saying you told him to fire him or whatever it is? No. What I am here to tell you is, you lie to me 9 times in 18 months, I'm not going to believe the 10th. So no, I don't believe you.
Do you think there could be a sort of unspoken check-in where Rodgers can be telling the truth and Woody Johnson can be telling the truth, but just a lot of like, hey, how do you think things are going? Like where there's just an undercurrent, but it's never said.
Rodgers can be telling the truth when he says, I resent that people, what was the exact quote?
That I got him fired.
That I got him fired.
Yeah, sure.
You can justify that and rationalize that in your mind. Because I didn't tell him go fire Robert Saleh. He had the idea in his head already. He came to me with it. I was like, hey, it's your and he probably didn't even say, yeah, I think that's a good idea. He probably just didn't stop it. And you're Aaron Rodgers, you could have stopped it. So in his mind, just like saying I was immunized versus vaccinated, in your mind, you can kind of justify that as telling the truth.
So I think that is giving him too much leeway and credit.
Me?
No, not you.
Just saying that he's actually telling the truth in his mind.
So if what you're saying is, could Woody have been like, so Aaron, tough game. I'm thinking of making, some changes. And Aaron's like, yeah, man, we need some changes. And, a conversation with massive subtext and no overt text, then he wouldn't have been telling the truth on McAfee. I listened to this whole miserable 40 minutes, and I heard him, we didn't talk about anything about that. There's nothing about that. He wanted to make sure I was doing okay. It was a quick call. He made it. So that wouldn't. He's not a trustworthy person.
So you're more hardened than I am.
You think in his mind he's telling the truth?
No, I give him, every time I hear Aaron Rodgers, I say, maybe. You say no, but I'm like, maybe. Maybe not. Everything he says, maybe not.
Can I give
you think he knew this was coming.
Maybe.
So here's the thing.
I just think his status in the organization. Woody Johnson doesn't have to tell, Garrett Wilson, we're getting rid of Robert Saleh. You got to tell Aaron Rodgers.
He called him the night before.
You have to tell him.
The other thing is, Aaron would be, for the record, he's having to walk a delicate PR line here. If the biggest boss of this company, who I talk to on the phone maybe twice a year, sounds like around the same schedule. Not the biggest boss of the company. I don't talk to Rupert Murdoch, but the biggest Fox Sports boss. If he called me, one of the couple check-ins we have, and the next day fired my boss, I'd be pissed. Like, it didn't come up. It didn't come up. And so, at you Wilds, I think one of the reasons I'm so kind of hardened and you're so optimistic is I think has to do with our own maybe ways we spend our leisure time. I hang around with a lot more disingenuous kind of sleazy people. And so I think you see Aaron and you're like, he feels credible. He feels sincere.
He does. Why
are you
And
a
I
poker
say,
player?
right,
You're
and
like,
I'm
no,
like,
you don't.
You seem like a con man. And in this instance, I'm not trying to be rude, you're the mark. You're like,
Oh,
he's
geez.
going to believe, like, I'm going to be able to get over on it. And I'm like, no, I know exactly who this guy is.
But to Nick's point, you said about being ticked off if the owner,
Yes.
your boss had gotten fired. If I'm Aaron Rodgers and I had no clue, and I know, and maybe somebody have told him, maybe he just knew. These types of firings generally don't work out. When you fire somebody in the middle of the season, you generally don't make the playoffs and certainly not the Super Bowl. And knowing all that, I would be ticked off if you did this without me knowing.
Nobody's ever made the Super Bowl. Nobody's ever made the Super Bowl.
So that's what I'm saying. So
Raiders
he made it a little harder on Aaron Rodgers to resurrect the Jets.
And teams being with the coach fired when you're one game below 500 in the middle of the season, unprecedented as well. So, yeah, you talked to me the night before. It never came up. Weird. I just don't believe you. All
right, former defensive coordinator and new head coach Jeff Ulbrich is going to lean on Rodgers to fix the offense. That makes sense. Jets' first 5 games, pretty much exactly the same under Aaron Rodgers.
It is amazing
as they were under
identical.
Zach Wilson. So, Brew, do you still think the Jets are a playoff team?
It's a difference of 15 total yards.
They got to still have a solid chance. Because we know if they beat Buffalo, and people are like, oh, yeah, Buffalo's not playing well.
And it's only a
Buffalo's
2-point
not
spread.
wildly talented. They got Josh Allen, the best player in the game, but outside of him. So if they beat them, they're obviously tied for first place in the AFC East. And we've talked about this the last few days. No one in the AFC outside of Kansas City, Baltimore, and Houston is looking great. So the Jets are battling with Buffalo, Pittsburgh for now, the Chargers, and then even after them, I go Denver, Cincinnati, and Indianapolis. Every one of those teams is flawed. Cincinnati's flawed just because they're in such a hole at 1-4. But most of these teams outside of Cincinnati and Indy are flawed in similar ways to the Jets. Very good defenses have trouble scoring. I do think as bad as Rodgers has been these last 2 games, I think he's going to play better. Well, I don't think he's going to be an MVP. I don't think he's going to be Pro Bowl level. But I think he's going to play above average quarterback. And I think that being the case, they definitely still have a shot.
All right, they have the least experienced coach of anyone they're going to play the rest of the year.
That's a good point.
And if we show their schedule, I count 2, maybe 3 games they have an edge at quarterback. Steeler game, give them the edge at quarterback.
Yep.
Patriot game, give them the edge at quarterback. And when I said maybe 3, if Flacco's playing, no, they don't have the edge at quarterback. If Anthony Richardson's, maybe. I'm assuming, by the way, Tua's back by week 14. But so you have least experienced coach, and you have what? 3 games, most optimistic, where you have the better quarterback, and that's what was supposed to fix things? They're not good. And I understand Brew's point of if they win, they're tied with the Bills and technically first in the division. Flip side of that is if they lose, they are potentially they're looking up at Miami in their division, who we had written off and potentially tied with the Patriots probably aren't going to win this week, but a game ahead of New England. We don't have evidence that this team is good at a single thing on offense.
On offense.
Yeah, no, not one.
Yeah.
No, right, but so that defense to me is not dominant enough to carry what is a miserable offense. And I don't think it's not like Aaron Rodgers, sorry to use this example, the Caleb Williams trajectory. Okay, the season as a year is middling, but each week he's gotten better.
Right.
That's far from the case. The last 2 weeks
But do you think he's going to play better? No. I think you don't think he's going to play better than he has the last 2 weeks?
Well, not better than he has over the breadth of the season.
Because initially he was pretty good early. Like the second and third game, it was like,
I didn't think he was that good against
Because they scored,
Tennessee.
3 touchdowns in 3 straight games, which is like first time in decades. He's got to play better. Obviously, if the offense doesn't get any better, they don't have a shot. But I gotta believe.
So his quarterback rating's 81. He is getting hit all the time. He's not escapable. He hasn't thrown for 300 yards in 27 games.
I've lost track. 27.
I think that's what it is. Do I think he's going to throw for 300 yards this season? No. Do I think his passer rating is going to end the season in the 80s, 90s, or 100s? The 80s. And that'll be below average for the league. He's a 41-year-old or soon to be 41-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles, hasn't been good in 3 years. The other last thing, I said this off the air, I'll say it again. His level of visual excruciation from what ended up being a minor injury.
I know this is a throwaway take, but
tells
it's a good
me
take.
that, his body is kind of trying to tell him, man, we're not in the football business anymore. Because the look on his face was, I was sad for him.
Right.
I was like, oh no, he just suffered a blown-out knee, and his career's over. Yeah. And the fact that it was, no, actually, I'm fine. I can run back on the field. But in the moment it hurt that bad, is like, a relatively
we've seen
typical.
Other players do that. Where we thought it was a serious injury.
No, but it felt more like if I
bad.
fell down. If I fell down and my kid fell down. One pops back up, and like,
I agree. Yeah. If he keeps taking these hits, he's probably not going to survive the 17 games. But in the moment, you can take a hit that feels terribly, and then you're back eventually.
See, so it's not about how bad the hit looked. It was the look on his face.
Yes.
It was
if it hurts in the moment,
the
you're
look on
be
his
like,
face. I don't know.
He was crawling around on the ground.
He was crawling. Yeah, listen, Brew probably has some old
I
guy
could tell you some stories.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.